Here's what power looks like in Washington, D.C. right now. The executive branch, the White House, controlled, of course, by a new popular Democratic president. The House of Representatives, controlled also by the Democrats. The other House of Congress, the United States Senate, controlled, by the Democrats. And just for context, you know how everyone talks about what a big deal Newt Gingrich was when he was Speaker of the House? How he wielded his massive Republican majority in the House to thwart Bill Clinton's agenda, to effectively neuter the new president in the middle of his first term? Sorry to get so phallic in that imagery, but remember, that's totally the way everybody talked about it back in 1995, and since. Anyway, Gingrich's massive 1995 majority, the overwhelming force that changed the course of Bill Clinton's presidency, was 25 seats. Wow, that's big, right? There were 25 more Republicans than Democrats in the House of Representatives. No wonder Clinton had such a hard time with his first-term agenda. You want to know how big Nancy Pelosi's majority is this year? Oh, yeah, 79. The Democratic majority in Congress is massive. Take that, manly metaphor mayhem. In the Senate, things are a little different. Since the Republicans have been in the minority there these last few terms, everyone has decided to go along quietly with the Republicans' insistence that these previously rarely used rules that give the minority some power in the Senate, those rules should now be used all the time. And so now it doesn't take a majority vote to pass something in the Senate. It doesn't take 50 votes. It takes 60 votes, a supermajority, inexplicably. In any case, the balance of power in Washington now is that Republicans in the House are a very, very, very small minority in a House in which the minority party has no power other than that which they can conjure from cable news. The Democrats in the Senate have as big a majority as they've got in the House. And even with this freakish rule about needing a supermajority, needing 60 votes to pass anything, they have almost got even that. If Al Franken gets seated from Minnesota, they'll have 59 of those 60 votes. All of this means that if the Democrats decided to work together, to act strategically as a party that has a vision for where they want the country to go, if the national elected officials of the Democratic Party decided that they wanted to, they could pass the president's agenda. They could stand together and pass a Democratic policy agenda to lead the country. They would need to earn precisely one vote on major bills in order to do that. Or they could even get rid of the dumb "it takes 60 votes to pass anything" rule, and then they wouldn't need any Republican votes at all. If they wanted to, Democrats could use the power voters just gave them in Washington, and they could lead the country by passing a Democratic policy agenda. Guess what? Turns out they're not interested in that. The newspaper Roll Call reports today, quote, led by Senators Evan Bayh, Tom Carper, and Blanche Lincoln, a group of 15 to 20 Democratic moderates plans to formally announce next week that it is aligning as a loose coalition focused on deficit reduction and fiscal responsibility. In other words, conservative Democrats in the Senate are forming an internal dissenters group to push the government to restrain spending, cut down that deficit, tighten its belt. Does that sound familiar?
I think if you look around the country, our economy is struggling. American families are tightening their belt, but they don't see government tightening its belt. And I think that we can get through this year and lead by example and show the American people that the government can go on a diet as well.
Government should go on a diet. Government should tighten its belt, just like we did when we made the Great Depression way worse. That spokesman for the utter misunderstanding of basic economics is the top Republican in the House, John Boehner. What are you thinking as a Democratic senator right now if you decide that with this president, in these times, with these Democratic majorities, now's the time to form a group of Democratic dissenters who, instead of following the president, will follow the leadership of the House Republicans, who happen to be the political laughingstock of the country? What are these Democratic senators thinking? This is the time, really, to form a tighten our belts, stop spending Democratic caucus in the Senate? This is the time? When the government desperately needs to spend to stave off a depression? This is the time, now, in 2009? And not, say, when George W. Bush turned hundreds of billions of dollars of surplus into $1 trillion deficit and spent $1 trillion on the war in Iraq and enlarged government more than at any time since World War II? You sat on your hands through all of that, but now you're deciding to dissent? Now that the Democrats are in a position to fix stuff? Now you're dissenting? Now you're finding your bravery?